Hello, this is Russell from
Tones of Evil.
And you're listening to Capes and Lunatics.
Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to make sure you know all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on all new episodes of Wade's World, Boob Windows and Long Boxes, our Hard R movie reviews, and so much more, all completely uncensored. Access starts for as little as $1 a month, full videos when you pledge $3 a month. Check us out at the link in all of our show notes, or just go straight to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
This is Luca Perich, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Recording has started. Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is the blue-eyed bomber from the Burger Pits.
Phil me and Perich.
He's the one. That's the man who knows that Iron City beer is the beer of the gods. That's right, kids. We're going all the way back to, actually, I have no idea if any of these were in this Jim Shooter era, but, yeah, we're going back to the creation of the Time Variance Authority, which is a timeless organization that is also bound by time, I imagine, in some way or another. I'm your host. We already did the hosting thing. Yeah. So anyway, here's the thing about the TVA. They are now very popular because they have been immortalized in the new Loki series. But they actually, much like Loki himself, have a convoluted and, if you will, mixed up history that doesn't quite flow A to B to C. Where it's like things are referenced, but they don't reference the TVA, and then the TVA gets referenced, but it's not quite the TVA, because I really think that when we first get the TVA, it is in Thor. Let's see, I'm trying to get back to it. That's the one where we get Justice Peace. But that TVA doesn't look anything like the TVA that we get when we get to Fantastic Four.
Well, like in that first Thor appearance, like Justice Peace, basically he even tells, or does he say it later? Let's like Justice Peace. I don't think technically is a member of the TVA, but it says sometimes they use freelancers, which was Justice Peace, who came from like in one of those future timelines.
Yeah, but I don't think he says that until
maybe not the Fantastic
Four. Yeah. So that's the idea, is that this whole Justice Peace thing, because he is essentially, but it's weird because he mentions the TVA sending him back the fact that, what is our villain's name in this? Bizarre?
Zaniac?
Bazaniac, was it?
Zaniac. Like Maniac?
Zaniac. Oh my gosh, how'd they get the rights to that,
I don't know.
From Steven Spielberg? What was the character that Steven Spielberg had?
No, that's not. Was that Freakazoid? Or?
Freakazoid.
Yeah.
That's right. No, he had the Animaniacs, and this is the Zaniac. Part of me feels like they were probably going to call Freakazoid the Zaniac, and then Marvel hit him with a copyright. I don't know. I don't know when this came out.
Yeah, the Zaniac thing was weird because I was just reading that this morning. It's I don't know, like some entity, like I said, lived in rats, and whenever the rats would bite people, like it could like possess these bodies and stuff, and it eventually survived the Justice Peace's time. Like he was saying, it's like right after World War VII,
Yes, World War VII,
So yeah, so they.
You know what's very sad about World War VII? You'd think by World War VII we might have gotten another planet involved. It's like, really? We're up to 7 and we can't even get one Martian invasion? You can just see that the Martians just give them time. Give them time. We'll just move in when they're done.
Hey, I mean, look, the Miss Universe contest, everyone's from Earth.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they're not applying. That's what I say, true. There's nothing that says you have to be from Earth to be Miss Universe.
Oh, that'd be funny. Just be like, I'm not entering that. They only have 2 boobs. Come on.
Well, Well, honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, the first 3 boobed contestant, she or he may have the inside track. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. There is still a talent competition. Let's not forget.
There's gonna be people protesting because there's people protesting against transgender people, doing stuff like that. They're gonna be protesting the first Martian or something. It's
well, yeah, but I what I want them to add a math section.
Oh.
To Miss Universe. I want to see these ladies up there at the board solving for X. Nothing's hotter than a woman that can solve for X. Just ask Wolverine.
Oh, jeez.
Solve for X. All right, getting back to this. Yeah, because Justice Peace is very much supposed to be, what are they called? The, Sylvester Stallone played one.
Oh, Judge Dredd.
Yeah, it's another Judge Dredd character. In fact, he's from Brooklynopolis, which is the mega city of, I guess, what used to be the United States, going down to the Panama Basin, where obviously in World War VI, maybe, they actually widened the Panama Canal, if you will. And
so I wonder if, as time goes on in the MCU, if eventually we'll see the TVA popping up every so often and hiring freelancers or guns for hire, because in that Fantastic Four time bubble story, wasn't Death's Head another
yeah. Well, what's interesting about that whole time bubble idea is the idea that that goes into that what has now been canonized as the what do we want to call it, the sliding time of that bubble around the universe, that things get pulled forward and things get back, because they say there's this bubble of time between that goes 15 years in either direction, which is sort of like, oh yeah, because that's how long comic book cycles go.
It first showed up in that Avengers storyline. I think they said, was it 40 years or something? Or there's a bubble of 40 years. No one can penetrate it and stuff. Even Kang couldn't get through it and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something that's mentioned in Mobius, in Meet Mobius, which is Fantastic Four 353, where Mobius makes the point, your entire universe was supposed to be pruned. Hey, our first reference to pruning.
Oh.
Your entire universe was supposed to be pruned 40 years ago. And then basically says, but the Fantastic Four stopped the pruning of that universe.
Well, yeah, they got the ultimate nullifier, and they basically nullified that.
Well, is that what he's talking about, or is that a meta commentary about how Fantastic Four essentially saved the Marvel Universe by creating this offshoot of superhero comics?
Well, I don't think the bubble was supposed to. Oh, I mean, maybe it was, but I mean, I think.
I kind of feel like it's meta commentary. I don't think it's obviously it's going to tie to some moment.
Because I think it was in the story, it was some future. It was in the future, so they basically nullified that future, so another future could take its place, because basically the whole universe was going to be destroyed. So they're yeah, let's destroy this and because remember Galactus had that big thing that someone had Galactus set up to eat the whole universe.
Well, I guess I don't know what happened. I don't know what actually happens in the big crunch that leads to the thing. But honestly, Galactus eating it, we don't know what Galen's universe was. We assume it was in Tropic Doom, but we don't really have a guarantee of that. And maybe there was a third force. I think they're going to be introducing Galactus's mother soon in some story. I don't know.
Or did they always? Yeah, there was something. Yeah, I saw, what was that about Galactus' mother? And everyone's wasn't he the last survivor?
Well, Galen had a mother, and so maybe Galen's mom survived too. Jeez. Maybe Galen's mom is the mourner. That'll work. I can live with that. That makes sense. Although the mourner doesn't make sense, because although, to be fair, well, no, because they give her Elder of the Universe status, but she's kind of supposed to be an actual esoteric force. It's very weird. I don't know. I don't get the mourner. I'm never going to get the mourner. I think they needed to workshop that a bit more before they put her in. But I understand that, it's a very tight deadline to get comic books done, so I'm not going to fault them for it.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a flashback, or they might just bring her in because it's going to take place. Did you see there's a new Defender series coming out? It's going to be in there.
Yeah.
Written by our old friend Al Ewing. So.
Oh, well, you know, I do like a lot of his stuff. Probably other stuff I hate. You know, that's one thing I find about comic book writers. Most comic book writers have a book that I absolutely adore and a book I absolutely hate. So, you know, it's like, oh, I liked it when they did that. I did not like when they did that. That was when they crossed the line.
Yes, but remember, he also was writing. He's the one who I think Al's the one who made Galactus the Lifebringer in that Ultimate series we were covering.
Oh, well, I liked that. So see, these are these things. These are these things I like, and then there's things that I both simultaneously love and hate, like Immortal Hulk, where I like the story, hate the body horror, and now we've got that over in Gamma Flight. Why with the body horror? We don't need it. But let's get back to the TVA. That's what we're actually here to talk about today. And one of the things again, sort of like what we talked about in our last Evergreen episode, the Loki episode, when we talked about Planet Olympus, and this idea of these places not being these alternate universes, but actually just being a physical place in space that you could travel to. Here we have a very interesting thing with regard to magic in Immortus's castle. Because because first off, we do know, because that's what our opening up on this, is basically when they put Thor back into the universe, he is dealing with the fact, and I'm trying to find that, let me go back to, I have it pinned on my phone here. Mm-hmm. Then when we get to Thor, which episode is this? 282, and it opens up with Thor trapped between dimensions this was published 1979. So he was still Don Blake in 1979. Mm-hmm. Because essentially what it is the Space Phantom. Again, an interesting thing where his culture prides duplicity, and so it's like, if you're not lying to me, I'm not trusting you. You know, that's just their morals. And he is caught between Limbo and the Space Phantom's planet, because the Space Phantom is trying to pull his planet out of Limbo, which got caught in Limbo because of the ongoing Time Wars. It gets crazy. So, and the idea is that when he's outside of Limbo for 60 seconds, he turns back into Don Blake. And so when half of him is outside of Limbo, half of him turns back to Don Blake. But when he gets pulled back in, now he's all Thor again. But they have to go get his hammer, because he can't do this without the hammer. You know, they fight through some stuff, as you do, to get to the castle of Immortus. Sorry, I believe they say that this is Chronopolis. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. But you have Tempest, who is constantly trying to kill himself, because existence is pain. And that's one of the things that Immortus says, is that all of his servants, like the Space Phantom, are really not helpful. But we see that Immortus can pick up the hammer, because in this world, only his magic is what works. So Odin's magic doesn't work here, just like in the TVA. So I found that was a nice thing. And I'm sure a lot of this gets retconned later, gets changed later. In fact, we even see that he's using up all of his time energy from his hammer here, comes up in the next issue related to the Time Variance Authority, which is Thor. Come on, work with me, robot. Which is Thor 272, where he has to use the energies that maybe there's still just a little bit of time variance energy in my hammer to allow me to recharge your time sled.
Oh, yes.
Yes. See, now, why didn't Loki think of that when their time device little time iPad was out of juice.
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, how's he going to call his brother at that point? That it's a little difficult.
True.
But
the hammer's not even the hammer, as far as we know, is still destroyed too.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true. Although Loki wouldn't know that yet.
Oh, that Loki wouldn't know. Yes.
Yeah. By the way, I gotta say, I'm missing what's his name? Thug. Trying to figure out what his name is. Thug Thompson. Oh yeah, or Thug Thatcher. Love me some Thug Thatcher.
Yeah, the guy Zaniac takes over. Yes.
Yeah. He's delightful. And once Zaniac takes him over, he gets like elf ears and pointy teeth. So clearly, that's how you know he's evil. Yeah, Justice Peace. He's fun, and he does confirm that Thor is who he says he is. So he says, "Okay, my bad. Don't need to kill you," which seems like kind of the thing. Oh, and there's a little side bit in here because we have the two kids going to live with Volstagg.
Oh yeah.
Whatever happened to those kids, man? I think they died in Ragnarok at some point.
I don't know.
In one of the Ragnaroks.
I'm trying to remember. They, for the most part, I don't think we ever see them again after. I mean, this was Walt Simonson's run. After he was done writing it, I'm not sure if they ever really did much with them.
No, they well, I mean, yeah, they come back in Walt Simonson's run, but
This is.
I want to say we get them as teenagers in like one of the more recent Ragnaroks.
Yeah.
Fighting for Asgard. I want to say I read that in a Wikipedia article. So, yeah. So, they lived all their life as mortals in Asgard. So, I'm sure that never caused any problems for them being literally, humans in the Asgard. Although, who knows? Maybe it toughened them up. Maybe it made them into like super soldiers kind of thing, Or maybe they ate some freaking golden apples of a dune and then they're like, oh, actually now we're gods too. Cool. Because people forget that. If you just have to eat the dang Idune's golden apples and you live forever. So that works, Maybe we should eat some of those. Oh.
But yeah, in this issue, I don't think I'm trying to remember, Justice Peace doesn't say anything about the Time Variance Authority, right? He just says he got sent back.
No, he does say TVA.
Okay.
He does say that because I was looking for that. Because I was thinking, wait, what is that? Isn't he supposed to be with the TVA? And I'll find the page.
That's right. He says they authorized. They said he could come back and try to stop Zaniac. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Although I found it very interesting, one of these things, that when you actually get the TVA look here, the one we actually see watching the Hulk looks like the Space Phantom. So maybe after we saved Tempest, a lot of those old Tempusians.
I'm just
okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh, so these kids are actually Thug Thatcher's kids, I think. Okay. And Jane Foster's pregnant in this story. I don't know what happens with that kid. That's a story.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that going anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. I think it's one of those things where they heaped on a bunch of tragedy at the end of their story when she comes back later.
Yeah.
Oh, I have cancer, and yes, all those plot points they dangled. Yeah, they've gotten rid of all of those. So, in the most tragic ways possible. So, yay! As long as we have a nice, tidy timeline, that's what's important. A sacred timeline, if you will, Philip.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
I'm looking. I was just looking. Go ahead, keep going. I was just looking to see if there said anything about what happened to her child or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when we get to Mobius, when we actually get to meet Mobius, in Fantastic Four 353, I believe it is. They actually don't have a sacred timeline, but they control what splits.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you get a split, it's like it needs to be, and this I think goes to that idea that I've often suggested, which is that the splits occur and but if they're minor enough, that universe just falls back into the main timeline. So, like, you know, like you can say, well, if you're late for work one day, that could lead to a variant timeline. But truth be told, it probably isn't going to lead to a variant timeline.
I mean, yeah, it could.
Because you were late.
I mean, you could have been in a car accident. You could have died. You could have killed somebody else. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, but the idea is that most... So, I mean, they do that to give you an idea of the weight of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the feeling that just those little things, that those kind of things happen, but that when they do, that timeline mostly just rejoins the main timeline because not enough variance is going to happen. That's why they can prune it to a certain point, but if it gets to a certain point, they can't prune it anymore. And I imagine that some time variations take care of themselves. Because obviously, all of them walking into a Ren Fair, when they delete that universe, that's a thing that happened, but it's not going to, generally speaking, disrupt that timeline. You know, one of the big criticisms of the Time Variance Authority, although not true of Justice Peace, is in the MCU Time Variance Authority, they don't have ranged weapons. And the reason they don't have ranged weapons is because if you miss on a ranged weapon, you're going to cause more damage to the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So you only want something that is short range and that can obliterate whatever you're dealing with in one shot. And that's why it's just a short range, one thing. You count the coup, that timeline is pruned. Because if it was something that you had to throw and they duck, and now you've just pruned out, James Jehoshaphat, and you don't know who James Jehoshaphat is because he got pruned. But he was actually supposed to be the inventor of the car that runs on water. So, thanks, CVA. That's why you're not supposed to throw those. Anyway, yeah, so, and honestly, Reed's plan to escape the TVA seems to be to blow up the TVA.
No, wasn't it that he kind of inserted a computer virus so like their timeline wouldn't show up like in the TVA's databank or whatever? It
seemed to be like he started splitting the TVA into alternate universes.
Yeah, kind of
like splitting the TVA's own internal timeline. So that but the idea is that he separates the 616 from the TVA's authority, which he clearly doesn't, but I guess in the short term.
I mean, for a while, for many years, it seemed like it worked, but yeah, eventually they brought it back.
And I didn't quite understand why they all had to take off their clothes.
Oh, those weird aliens who were like train conductors. Like the price was like earth cloth, which again, did they even mention there was unstable molecules? But yeah, it's like these aliens wanted like the earth cloth or whatever. So.
I see.
Which again is more valuable than regular earth cloth. It's unstable molecules.
Well, maybe they knew it was unstable molecules. Maybe that's just what they thought earth cloth was. Because they let them keep their bras and panties and their underwears. So, Thank goodness Johnny wasn't going commando that day. By the way, when you jump around, it's interesting that in this one, the thing is in his mutated form again, and Sharon Ventier is back to being human.
Yep.
And now he's having all these weird things. Because we saw, like, in the last one, there was the whole thing, like, at the start of this, when we first introduced Mobius and the TVA in the time bubble, it's like, she's, like, human, but she doesn't want to go back to being a thing. But they also deal with the idea that she doesn't want to give up being a thing because she's so vulnerable as a human, and it's like, well, maybe we can figure out a way. Now, at this point, I'm wondering if this is after she sold them out to Doom, and he's turned her back to a human for a while. I wasn't following the FF at this time.
Well, yeah, 350 is when Doom kind of turns her human, and that's when Ben Grimm becomes a thing again. And then, at the end of this TVA thing, it's like we change creative teams. So I don't think we even see Sharon for like another year or something. So it's
well,
at least a year. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? And then when we see her again, she's a thing again. So I don't know. It's weird.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, no, because doesn't she go into be a monster thing at one point?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, oh yeah, Doom cured her, but then yeah, when she comes back, it's kind of like she's like after a while she starts mutating, and and some weird. It's not even a thing. It's just like
but they get her back to human at this point.
I don't know if they dropped that.
I'm not
too.
sure. Like I said, I wasn't actually reading the Fantastic Four as much as this is like this is one of my gaps in my Fantastic Four memory.
Yeah, because it was around because
for reasons, I guess
she came back and started working with the group against them. That's around that time where Doom and Reed supposedly died.
Yeah, I remember that. See, that I remember reading. And it's weird. It's and especially before I understood the power of a pull list, it was always a little harder to get in on things. And also when your money was much more limited, that was the weird thing is like, there was a time when comic books were really expensive to me because my budget was limited, even though comics were cheap.
Yeah, and then there was that point where it's like I was just buying off the spinner rack until I discovered like the an actual comic shop. Yeah. Yeah.
It gets weird, my friend. It gets weird. But yeah, the TVA, I mean, it is an interesting concept. It makes sense to some extent, but again, like I say, and you get a real presentation of it here, which is this idea that, once things split, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with this infinite number of things? Although one thing I do like in this, and I was actually waiting for them to do the line from Loki here, because when the FF is on trial, they make the point that, well, why aren't the X-Men here? Why aren't the Avengers here? They've all been messing with time travel a lot. Why are we getting singled out? Now, obviously, one could point out that they are the ones that led to every other time variance that occurred. But I remember them to say those time variances were supposed to happen. I was hoping that was going to be their answer, and it wasn't.
Well, I think all of the X-Men, the Avengers, it's like they were kind of just like traveling through time. No, at this point, the Fantastic Four actually like nullified that future timeline. So it's like, oh yeah, you actually destroyed something. And I think the TVA might have had a hand in that. So they're like, oh yeah, you basically blew up our work. So
yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting, and then but again, that was all a part of Reed's plan. And I actually like Sue, like, trusting Reed in this moment when she's like, obviously you have to explain it you don't have to explain it to anyone but my brother. And Johnny gets to be our little audience surrogate. Yes, please explain what happened. Although we all knew, it's like, yeah, obviously he's got a plan. He's stalling. He's like a good Loki. He's stalling.
But then in like this story, unlike the MCU, it's like they weren't just trying to create the TVA wasn't trying to create one timeline. They were just keeping all the timelines supposedly running smoothly.
Yes, well, that's the idea. Well, because I guess the idea is like, every timeline is someone's sacred timeline. And they're being much more beneficent, I guess. But that gets too confusing for bureaucracy. And it's funny because it's intended to be a self-replicating bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, they even show that. Yeah, they're like, oh, every time there's a new timeline appears, and a new guide, a new desk appears, and.
But what's funny is that when you make, because it's sort of this, and I guess this is where we get what our current TVA in the MCU is, because if you look at it, someone like Justice Peace, it's clearly meant to be somewhat fascistic. When we get to this one, it seems much more, timelines are allowed, but when you break with what we're doing, then it's a problem. Mm-hmm. And this idea of the sacred timeline, and I'm really, I actually did not get into my She-Hulk touches on this, because as you will recall, the She-Hulk eventually becomes a magistrate who I want to say works with both the Living Tribunal and the TVA. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I know that there's this whole thing, because that's one of the ways that Hawkeye gets back. And it's a weird thing that apparently they don't even have a single way that people come back into life anymore. Because she brings Hawkeye back from his death at the hands of Scarlet Witch. And in the She-Hulk comics, he knows that's how he came back. But in other versions, it's just no, Scarlet Witch's creation was just a fantasy, and I never really died. So,
well, I think it was a weird thing too, because it was like it happened before House of M, but then she altered reality in House of M, and then when it got put back, Hawkeye just like suddenly appeared. You know, it just appears in the middle of the screen.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, where it happened?
Well, because that's the thing, and and that was one of the weird things with that, because she eventually. Okay, now I'm remembering it. So what happens is she wants to bring Hawkeye back. She can't bring Hawkeye back because they say no, he's supposed to die. But she has him testify at her trial, and she slips him a note. That note is what brings him back when he goes back in time. It's weird, but that's how we get Two Gun Kid in the future, who has been forgotten about. But Hawkeye left him his Knights of Wundagore Sky Cycle, which I don't know what Two Gun Kid is doing now. He was cool. They bring references to him back on a regular basis. Because if you remember in the Old Man Star-Lord series, it's the Two Guns kid or his grandkid who gives him Two Gun Kid's old guns.
Yeah.
Except there's only one left, so it's only the One Gun Kid for a girl. Oh, by the way, that's now, I guess, a podcast. They're doing an Old Man Quill podcast, and it's not on Stitcher.
Huh.
It's on Audible, I think. So.
Oh, you probably got to pay for it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I've been seeing it, and, you know, that's the thing. It's like the ones on Stitcher, they eventually give them to us with ads. Because that's the thing. It's like, I'm happy to listen to an ad.
Yeah.
I'm not Lilith Hellfire, okay? I will listen to an ad.
Well, I wonder...
to pay for my thing. I got to watch Captain America Death Too Soon today again because I was saying, let it have ads. Let the ads roll. I don't mind.
Well, I just wonder if they'll do that eventually, because I mean, they did that with Stitcher. Those other ones, they put them up on Stitcher, and you had to pay for them, and then eventually they released them free with ads. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure some people paid for it to listen to it right away, but of course, you know, it's a comic book universe podcast. I think the internet frenzy over it is going to be a lot less than in generally available stuff. And maybe they're trying to do something here. I don't know. So, I'm just waiting for the non-fungible tokens to come into digital comics. And that's when things are really going to start to go crazy.
Oh, I might.
Every digital download is its own non-fungible token.
I might have to let you know. I might be able to listen to the Old Man Star-Lord podcast.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
know if it's because I have a Sirius XM account, because they do podcasts now too. So I want.
Oh yes, actually, it's on Sirius XM. That's why you have to pay for it.
Okay.
Or
okay. I have an account.
Yeah.
I have an account, so yeah, so I can listen to it. I'll let you know, because someone was telling me about this at work. I guess there's a bunch of like a bunch of famous names who are like part of this.
Oh yeah, no, that's the funny thing is, like, right now, all of those billions of dollars that the billionaires have, it's actually in liquid investment capital. So, like, all these entertainment companies get to pay millions of dollars to named talent to come and do voiceover work, which is really hurting the voiceover work economy in its own way. But, yeah, so, yay!
I know. Oh, wait. Hey, Russell, he's saying it's a common theory, but do we think more MCU TVA is related to Kang? Well, yeah, we've said that. It's like they're probably preserving that sacred timeline to make sure Kang comes about.
Well, I mean, that's one theory, or that the three timekeepers are Kang, Rama-Tut, and Immortus,
yes,
or possibly the Crimson Centurion, and then Rama-Tut is going to stage his attack from the flanks on the side universe, because that's how that works.
I mean, I read some of the Avengers Forever, that miniseries, that they were basically cleaning up continuity in that, because that's where, like, was it Immortus is like basically, you know, used time or whatever to copy Jim Hammond's body. So yes, that body was the Human Torch and remained the Human Torch, but there was also a copy of it that became the Vision, or they actually separated Kang and Immortus, so it's like Kang's like, oh, ha, ha, I don't have to be that idiot anymore, ha ha ha.
Well, technically, he never had to. He just had to make a choice not to be him.
Yeah, but he's like, oh, that's not my. It doesn't have to be my destiny anymore. Ha ha ha.
Except it probably still is, because
Yeah.
It's like well, they did something similar to Iron Lad in the what's that series called with the I'm forgetting what they called it. It was originally all the mutants who came and were like the variant versions, but they had like Rebecca Barnes in it. They had Kamala Khan in it, but old Kamala Khan. I'm forgetting what they called that series.
Oh, Exile? Is that Exiles you're talking about?
Exiles, yes, Exiles, because they were all alternate timeline variants that were brought together to do basically go on suicide missions. It was great. And one of them was Iron Lad, and Iron Lad's curse was that he had to relive becoming Kang. Because much like Kang not wanting to be Immortus, Iron Lad didn't want to be Kang. Mm-hmm. Fun fact is that there is another variant of Iron Lad where he is Teen Kang, and that is the one that Dr. Doom manipulates along with the juvenile Annihilus to become Ultimate Doom that eventually, Monaco, the Prince of Magic, and the FF that was on Earth with the Future Foundation essentially owns. That's in the Old Reds books, so that's a good one. So that's always one of my favorites. Every time Doom gets beat up, that's always my favorite. And that issue, that's going to take a while to load. But anyway, yes. Time Variance Authority didn't care about that. But, yeah, that's where the Living Tribunal, gives them the curse, is you will gain a mark upon your face every time you hurt another human being. And...
But, I was reading Avengers Forever and some of that, like that West Coast Avengers stuff, where it looked like the Scarlet Witch went evil. It was basically a Mortis. And again, now when I think it was like, the Timekeepers tasked Mortis with, preserving the timeline that brought about the Timekeepers. So maybe this is them preserving their own timeline. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense in its own right, too. It's like, well, we only come in because for what it's worth, and maybe they're going to deal with the Time Twisters in this, because there is the universe in which the Timekeepers, and that's another Thor book that predates the actual introduction of the Timekeepers, where the Time Twisters were introduced. And I have to look that up, but the idea is that something went horribly wrong in the creation of the Timekeepers, and that created the Time Twisters, and maybe that's the Time War they're talking about. They're like, no, what? Kang's a minor inconvenience. Kang is like, he's a human from Earth who has a time machine. Yes, we know those exist. Sometimes they're problematic, sometimes they're not. But the Time Twisters are what we're trying to prevent coming to existence.
Well, maybe they do a variation on that. The timeline gets fractured and the Timekeepers become Kang, Immortus, and Ramata.
Who knows what they're going to do? That's the fun of shows, but we only got 3 episodes left.
I know.
At the time of this recording, because you could be listening to this 20 years in the future, like, well, now I got to look up, what is this Loki show they talk about? There was a Marvel Comics? What is this thing?
That's going to be like...
An MCU?
Season 1? Oh.
What?
We're on season 15.
Yes. I was so glad when they replaced... Tom Hiddleston with Alan Cummings. It was such a brilliant idea. I need Alan Cummings to just come in as old man Loki. I am the real Loki. I predate you.
I mean, the whole thing with Sylvie, being able to jump bodies, is this going to be our way of, recasting Loki? We're always going to have a Loki. He's going to be like Doctor Who, and we're just going to be able to recast Loki as different people as time goes on.
I thought you were going to say Doctor Doom there for a moment.
No.
Dr. Doom 2099. No, Dr. Doom made this machine that just rewrites your brain to be Dr. Doom. So, which I actually love the fact that Dr. Doom can rewrite any person's brain to be a Dr. Doom level genius, and think they're Dr. Doom, which means that, dude, you could turn everybody in the world into a super genius, and you don't, because you're a jerk.
Yeah, but I know your whole thing with the rewriting brains, but I thought the Doom thing was kind of mysticism, too, where it's kind of like he's pushing, I don't know, the soul or whatever out of their body.
Well, he's got two versions, because you have the Christoph version.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the purely mechanical rewriting of the brain. And then you have the Ovid version.
Yes, the aliens, yes.
That's where you push your soul into somebody else's body.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the whole Christoph thing.
Yeah, my friend, when it comes to how could I survive, Doom isn't picky. I mean, really, Doom is kind of like Robot in Invincible, where he's like, no, I knew I would die. That's fine. I just want someone to think they're me going on with life. That's better. You know, that was always my plan. And Doom is like, yeah, no, I don't care. It's kind of like Doc Ock in that way. It's like, what, you killed a body? I got backups, man. You know? Little do they know that each one creates a brand new soul.
And Doom doesn't want to make everyone in the world think he's him. Even Doom's like the rest of us. Doom don't want to deal with Doom.
Well, but that is his ultimate thing. He doesn't want a world of super geniuses that can appreciate his intellect. He wants a world of subservient people to his intellect. And that's why he's always a bad guy.
I mean,
except in the one universe where he's a hero because he actually stops for 5 minutes and talks to Reed Richards, and they actually form a friendship, and he builds human connections. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, literally, it's just like not because he was not a jerk for one moment in his life. It actually allowed him to stop jerking his entire life, and that's a great thing. Anyway, talking about alternate timelines, it's all good because this is the TVA podcast, so we're good on this.
I mean, this is creating the multiverse because I think they said they're like, oh yeah, the stakes on this Loki series are bigger than anything, you know, that's come so
that's
far.
an interesting question because it kind of seemed like when Sylvie attacked the timeline, it was not to recreate the multiverse, but to just have all of the timekeepers be dispersed. So there would be no one left in the TVA for her to attack. Because that seemed to be my take. So my take on it from the end of it is literally just that, yeah, everyone was gone. Everyone had to go deal with all of these timeline variations that just occurred. And it was a lot of work, but they probably got it all taken care of for the most part. There might be one or two alternate timelines that exist now, but it was all stuff that they could mostly handle, and that the whole purpose was just to get everyone out. And then, of course, Sylvie comes back, finds out that her magic doesn't work in the TVA, which is the one thing that hurts in the theory that she was raised by the TVA, that her magic doesn't affect them, which actually suggests that maybe they did come to prune her and she escaped, and she's just been a running time variant this whole time. That's another possibility. She could have been a Loki she could have been a Sylvie for years, running from this TVA. So, well,
all their employees are time variants. I think if anyone comes from the greater multiverse, they either brainwash them and make them work for them, and if they couldn't do it for the Sylvies, they're like, we gotta kill her.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. Exactly what the Sylvie timeline is going to be interesting, and I'm sure we're going to get that reveal in the coming weeks. All right. Any final thoughts on the TVA, how they came to be, what they're supposed to be, what they could be, Philip?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think on that. That'd be interesting to find out where the TVA actually start. Well, with the timekeeper, supposedly. I mean, in the MCU at least. But yeah, I mean, that'd be interesting. Oh, well, mark my words, it's 6 months to a year. We're going to get a story where, yes, the Timekeepers created the Time Variance Authority in the comics.
Well, the Timekeepers did create the Time Variance Authority.
Did they?
Well, so the last, and that's where it's, that's the idea, is like the last member of the TVA creates the timekeepers.
Oh, yeah.
And the timekeepers go back and create the TVA.
That closed circle thing, yeah.
Yeah, basically it's
chicken and the egg,
which is something that Immortus says to Thor in the first reference to the timekeepers. But he actually says my life isn't a closed circle. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And again, like I said, when you get to looking at those timekeepers who look a lot more like the space Venom than Mark Grunwald, you get this question like, well, are they really something different? Are they using variants? Are the beings who are native to the limbo dimension the beings in this non-time universe?
Or is it just one of those things where it's like, we appear different to different people?
Yeah, it's like Galactus.
Exactly.
It's all galactized. That's what I say. All right. Yeah, I mean, the TVA is definitely always worth a deep dive. Everyone should deep dive into it. And Loki, and quite frankly, why don't you do a deep dive into Ben Grimm? Because he doesn't get enough love. And find out what the heck Sharon Ventura is doing now. Because we don't know. Last I heard, she was selling mutant growth hormone on the underground unlimited class wrestling circuit. Got in jail. She broke out. She's doing what she's got to do. Maybe she can turn back into human at will now. We don't know. Honestly, it's a much different story for her because she doesn't, although obviously the idea of being a transforming person still has resonance in every universe. So who knows where we go next, Philip? All right. Philip, if anyone wants to talk to us about the TVA, about Sharon Ventura, about Ben Grimm, about Mobius, M. Mobius, about anybody in the multiverse, how can they find you and us as a people?
If you want to talk to me or my people, yes, you can email us, capesandlunatics@gmail.com, or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And find links to all of our various social medias, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Patreon, links to merch, links to everything we do at Linktree, linktr.ee/capesandlunatics.
Very good. And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way they did back in Walt Simonson's era, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it, when the sacred timeline allows. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Maz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been another episode of Superconnectivity. I hope you've enjoyed connecting with us. Please super connect with us again next week. Good night.
Good night. And stay tuned. Next episode will be Superconnectivity 350.
Ooh. Whatever will we do?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
At least I have some extra time. Hey, we're pre-recording, so I have some extra time to work on.
Okay. Yeah, we got two in the bag, so.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be something big, so tune in.
Hey there everyone, I'd like to tell you about the YouTube channel I Am Your Target Demographic. If you're a fan of comics, we have plenty that you'll enjoy over there, including a series called Heroes Like Us that explores comic characters of all sorts of different identities. And we even have a series that defines words that are used in nerd culture that you may not know what they mean. So you can check us out by heading to YouTube and searching I Am Your Target Demographic, or look up IAYTD on any social media outlet.